DreAllDay.com.
What's going on to the basketball universe? This is Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. We are here for our annual tradition of my NBA Finals pick. I don't talk about basketball that much anymore these days. I mean, as you can see, we made some changes, but I still follow basketball. I'm still a basketball player at heart. So now we're gonna talk about my NBA Finals pick. I done laid out my 12 points, my 12 reasons for why I'm making my decision. And I got these two different color markers here. The blue is where I'm going to make a point that goes in the favor of the Golden State Warriors. The green is where I'm going to make a point in favor of the Boston Celtics. And at the end, right here, I'm going to tell you what my pick is for the NBA Finals. So hopefully, y'all let me know if y'all like this whiteboard. Now I think I'm pretty good at painting pictures with my own words, but with the whiteboard, now I can actually let you look at it and see it at the same time. I don't know if I made my words big enough here. Next time I'll make them a little bit bigger. I could use more of the space. But this is actually, by the way, those of you who are watching, this is the first video that I have recorded using this whiteboard. So y'all can look at this as kind of like an experiment. And there's a member of my mastermind who I've been telling, because just as a side note, there's a member of one of my coaching program masterminds, which y'all can get in. You go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. She's been hesitating to get started on a podcast that she wants to start because she's like, well, I want to make it better. It's not going to be good at first. The first one's going to be terrible. And I keep saying to her, look, put it out anyway, because a year from now, you'll be able to look back at it and see how much better you got. But if you don't start, then you can't get better. So this right here, even though you see I left a lot of space on the table on this board, this is the first one. So in the future, this will and should be better. So again, blue is going to be a point for the Warriors. Green is going to be a point for the Celtics. And before I even get into that, let's talk about the conference finals series that just ended. First of all, in the Western, the teams that lost, the Dallas Mavericks. I personally wasn't expecting the Mavericks to beat the Phoenix Suns after they had won. I can't remember which game they won. Actually, they had lost early in the series. I said Mavericks not winning the series. Luka's going to do his thing, but they're not going to win this series. They can't compete. And then they ended up beating the Suns and actually beating them pretty handily in that game 7. So I think that was a surprise to a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but to a lot of people. So it was good to see Luka win a couple rounds and go deep into the playoffs after losing in the first round a couple times. So we all know that guy's a star moving forward. They need to get him a little bit more firepower on that team. And Dallas is a team to be reckoned with moving forward. I think we can all see that. In the Eastern Conference, the Miami Heat. I live here in Miami. It would have been exciting to see the Miami Heat go to the finals because the city is just more electric when the home team is in the finals. But I didn't think the Heat had enough firepower to beat Boston. After watching the games, I'm like, the Heat just don't have the weapons. They don't have the tools to actually beat Boston. They didn't have enough firepower. And going into that game 7, I believed, though, I said this on Twitter, that the Heat can bully their way and scrape and claw their way to actually winning that game 7. They could, and they almost did. And Boston was up pretty solidly the whole game. And I remember after the first quarter, Boston was up by like 15. I said, they should be up by 25. They are way better than the Heat. Boston's just a better team than Miami. And then Boston kind of let it slip. I want to talk about that in a minute. Heat called their way back. Then Jimmy Butler shot the 3-pointer. Everybody's talking about the 3-pointer. What do I think about that shot? Good idea by Jimmy Butler. First of all, y'all got to remember, Jimmy Butler played the whole game. He was basically the Heat's whole offense. Nobody else was really doing anything. Bam was making some shots. But other than that, it was just Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero was, I suppose, he was just too hurt to do anything, so he didn't really play that much in game 7. Nobody else is really doing anything. Jimmy Butler had to do everything, and I think Jimmy Butler unconsciously made a calculated decision. Let me just shoot this 3, because if I make this, we can win. But if it would have went to overtime, another 5 minutes with all the defensive attention on him, I don't think Jimmy Butler would have been able to pull that out from Miami. So people saying, well, he should have drove and tried to score on Al Horford. Scoring on Al Horford is not a guaranteed deal. So anyone saying, well, it was a bad decision by Jimmy to shoot that 3, I don't think so. Even though Jimmy's not, he's not Klay Thompson from 3-point land. He can make them. He can make a few. And in that situation, I think it was a good idea because the Heat really didn't have any other options. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about what that says about the Celtics, what happened in that game in a minute. So without further ado, let me take the tops off my markers and let's get into it. We're going to talk about each one of these 12 points. First of all, these are in no particular order. I'm going to give a point for each one depending on what side it's on. First of all, Boston Celtics. This is like ESPN, right? But this is I don't have the electronic board. This is just a regular board that you write on with pens. Boston Celtics. One thing that bothers me about the Celtics going into the finals, it bothered me about watching Game 7 is their shaky ability to close. They were very shaky closing out the Miami Heat in Game 7. They tried as hard as they could to give away Game 7, and they almost did on the road when they were clearly the better team. They had a very handy lead, and they damn near blew it in the last 3 minutes of that game. So because the Celtics are a shaky closing team, because they haven't been to this point yet of closing out and winning a Game 7 or winning, not a Game 7, but winning a conference final series. They have lost a few times. Now they're in the NBA Finals with this group for the first time. I am pessimistic on the Celtics' ability to close. So because of that, I'm going to give a point to the Golden State Warriors for this point right here. Celtics are a shaky closing team. Point number 2, Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, is woke. I am not a fan of wokeness. So for woke Steve Kerr, just last week he was in a media appearance and he went and did this little emotional rant about when are we going to do something, and the people in Washington, D.C. need to do something about guns and things like that. Clearly, Steve Kerr doesn't understand how the law works, nor does it really matter to him, because when people are woke, that's more of a religion. It's not based on logic and thinking. It's based on emotion. So we're going to give a point to the Celtics for that one, just because the Warriors have woke Steve Kerr as a coach. Not a fan of woke Steve Kerr. I like Steve Kerr, the player, who was Michael Jordan's teammate, but woke Steve Kerr, not a fan. Number 3. When it comes to home crowds, I think the Celtics have a stronger home court advantage. Now, I know Warriors fans out there, or those of you who became Warriors fans in the last 7 years since the Warriors been good. I know most of y'all wasn't fans before, but those of you who are actually from Oakland and actually real Warriors fans, not just since Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, Celtics have a stronger home crowd because they just have more of the tradition. The Warriors had a great home crowd when they were at the Oracle Arena. The arena that they're playing in now, I forget the name of it, but the new one, the New Age Arena. This happens with every team when they have the traditional arena and they have a very strong home court advantage there, but then they move to these New Age arenas with the new acoustics and the new, just the dynamic architecture. The home court advantage is not the same, and the prices go up. So the fans that come from the hood that are really the fanatics that help the team win, they are priced out of going to the games. And then you got more like the tech guys, especially in San Francisco. You got like the tech guys and more money people. They're not fanatics. They're fans. They're like this. They're not the fanatics, who will go get drunk and will fight somebody over the game. So because of that, and the Celtics have a new arena too. They're not in the Boston Garden anymore. They're in the TD Arena. But the Celtics have a stronger home court advantage because of that. And the Warriors, theirs is more new. So based on just the power of the home court advantage, I'm not talking about the number of games. I'm talking about the power of the fans' effect on the team's ability to win. This is kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. I definitely got to go with the Boston Celtics on that. So this is a point for the Celtics. So the Celtics are up 2-1 at this point. Next, basic home court advantage. This is talking about how many games you get at home versus how many games on the road. The Warriors are the higher seeded team. So, or at least I think they had the same record during the season, but the Warriors, I guess, had the tiebreaker, whatever that was. So because of that, the Warriors get the first 2 games at home, then they would get games, 5 and 7 at home. So if it goes to a game 7, then it will be in Golden State. I think we can all agree that is an advantage for the Golden State Warriors. So we're going to get that to the Warriors. We're tied 2-2. Point number 5, Time Lord, Rob Williams. Watching him in game 7 against the Miami Heat, he was useless. Rob Williams played a lot of minutes in game 7, way more than he should have, given the fact that he was doing absolutely nothing. I'm not sure he even scored in the game, and if he did, I didn't notice it. He was doing nothing. He wasn't really protecting the rim. He wasn't really making any plays. He wasn't finishing any buckets. He wasn't doing anything. He was just on the court. I think the Celtics could have used Daniel Tice in game 7, maybe more than Rob Williams. Maybe Rob just being out there, just his body out there was more of a deterrent at the rim than Tice would have been. Maybe the Heat would have drove to the basket more if it was Tice instead of Rob Williams. But Rob Williams did a whole lot of nothing in game 7, which tells me not that Rob Williams is a bad player, but that Rob Williams is probably still injured. And game 7 was Sunday. I'm recording this on Thursday. So the finals are starting Thursday. Whatever is up with Rob Williams, I'm not sure he could have recovered from it in 3 or 4 days. And they had to travel. So they had to travel from Miami back to Boston, then from Boston back to over to San Francisco. That's a whole lot of travel. It's not really a rest day. Any of you who's ever played a sport, the travel day is not a rest day. All right, you might think that it is not. All right, sleeping on the plane ain't the same as sleeping in the bed. Whatever's up with Rob Williams, I don't think he recovered in 3 days. He did not look good in game 7. So because of that, without him, that puts the Celtics at a defensive disadvantage, and it shortens their rotation by another person. So that is definitely a point for the Golden State Warriors. Celtics fan, if y'all don't have Rob Williams, a healthy Rob Williams, y'all in a little bit of trouble because y'all going to need somebody who can keep Golden State away from the rim. So that's another point for the Golden State Warriors. Next, When it comes to the Boston Celtics secondary scoring, their ability to create points when the points are not coming from their main guy, Jason Tatum, who averaged 26, 27 points a game this year, made first team All NBA. And what we noticed in Game 7 against the Miami Heat, that the Heat started trapping Jason Tatum, or at least when he started to move towards the basket, they would trap him. He would pass the ball to somebody else, and the Celtics secondary scores were shaky. Jaylen Brown, I like him as a player, but something that I noticed watching the Heat series is that Jaylen Brown's handle was looking a little bit shaky. He was losing the ball a little bit too often, and now the Heat is a tough defensive team, scrappy defensive team. Who knows, how the Warriors will compare as far as on-ball defense, but the Celtics didn't have a solid secondary scorer who could just take the ball and do something. All right, you're going to trap Jason Tatum. Okay, now I'm going to go do something. Jaylen Brown, I would expect to be that guy, but with his handle looking shaky, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do it. Marcus Smart is kind of hit or miss. Sometimes he's making his open shot, sometimes he's not. And who else are you going to get a ball to? One guy that did step up and make some shots a few times in the playoffs this year has been Pritchard for Boston. He didn't really play that much in Game 7. Who else is going to score for them? Al Horford can score, but Al Horford is older. What is he, 35, 37, 36, something like that. I don't know if you could depend on him every single game for doing that, even though the finals games will be spaced out a little bit more in the conference finals. So the Celtics secondary scoring is going to be a big question. And until or unless somebody answers that, they got trouble. The Warriors have secondary scoring. They have, of course, you got Curry, you have Klay Thompson, you have Poole who can come off the bench, you have Andrew Wiggins. They have more secondary scores, secondary, tertiary scores than the Celtics do. I am more confident that the Warriors can produce points when Curry's not the guy, then I'm confident in the Celtics producing points when Tatum's not the guy. So for that, I'm giving a point to the Golden State Warriors on this one. Moving on to point number 7. When it comes to finals experience, does experience matter in these situations? Yes, it does. The Warriors have been here. They went to the finals in 2015. They won. 2016, they blew a 3-1 lead. 2017, they won. 2018, they won. Of course, they had Durant those years. 2019, they lost to the Golden State Warriors when they got a couple of injuries. They've been away for a couple of years. Now they're back in the finals. They had that experience. This Celtics team, this group, does not have experience being in the finals. Does that matter? From what I hear, from what I've heard people in the media say, that in the finals, the attention is way higher. You have all of these media that show up to the finals that are not in other places. All of these bright lights. Everybody's there. And it's just a whole different level of scrutiny. Does that matter? I believe that it does. Having experience being there before matters. So for that, I'm going to give it to the Warriors. They have a lot more experience than the Boston Celtics. I look like somebody on ESPN right now. This is like my Stephen A. Smith. Number 8, Boston Celtics. I think they might be a year early. I do believe they might be a year early here because they hadn't even gotten to the finals and gotten beat, let alone had they gotten to the finals and won. Now, a caveat to this is the Golden State Warriors. The first time they went to the finals, this group was in 2015. And it seemed like they might be a year early too. And they went up against LeBron and the Cavs. Now, in a caveat to the caveat is that the Cavs that year, Kyrie Irving went out after either game 1 or game 2. He didn't play the rest of the series. Kevin Love was injured. He didn't play the whole series. So it was basically LeBron and a bunch of role players against that Warriors team. And LeBron fought valiantly. Had they had Kyrie and Kevin Love, the Cavs would have won the 2015 NBA Finals. Just my opinion. But the Warriors did end up winning that championship when they seemed like they might be a year early. So me giving this year early point, I could just invalidate my own point by saying, hey, the Warriors did it. But I think barring injuries, if everybody's healthy, I think the Warriors have a much stronger team here, and the Celtics might be a year early. They might need to get beat in the finals here before they can come back and be even stronger for next season's team, especially if they're fully healthy and they need to add a little bit more scoring punch. So I think the Celtics might be a year early here, possibly. Doesn't mean they can't win, but I'm going to give this point to the Golden State Warriors on year early. Next, point number 9, the rotations. I believe the Warriors' rotation is deeper than the Boston Celtics rotation, especially given if time where Rob Williams is injured. Now that's going to push somebody else up in the rotation and maybe shorten the rotation periods. There's fewer people playing, more minutes on everybody, more pressure on everybody to do something. And the Warriors just have, I believe, a deeper rotation. They have more players they can actually put in the game who might actually do something. And the Celtics rotation just it got thinner and thinner. Even though they have younger legs, they had younger legs in the Miami Heat, I'm saying. Their rotation was getting thin, and it was looking like they were hanging on by a thread in Game 7. And because of that, I think the Warriors have a deeper rotation. So should it be needed, the Warriors can go further into their bench than the Celtics can or will. So I'm going to give this point to the Golden State Warriors. This is starting to look like a runaway for the Warriors, but we're not done. Players that I trust the most coming into pressure situations in any kind of game. I played professional basketball myself in all levels of basketball, whether they're talking on the street, college, pro, recreational leagues. When you get into pressure situations, and I think the NBA Finals is a pressure situation, that you want to know what players you can trust. Because I knew players who, when we would have no practice or we're playing pickup in an empty gym, nobody watching, players can play a certain way, but we go play in some league and the courts are lined with fans all around and there's a hostile environment and we're playing against players that might be allegedly better than us and just the pressure is a little bit higher. Those same players who could play good in the empty gym didn't play so good in the full gym. So I'm asking myself, which players do I trust the most? Now, all these guys are NBA players. They've all played in full gyms for at least this entire season. So they all can play in the gym. The thing is, at this level of scrutiny, this level of attention, this Celtics group hasn't been there. This Warriors group has been there over and over and over again. They are veterans of the situation. So which players do I trust the most right now in this situation? 3 guys: Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Those are the 3 players that I trust the most. Jason Tatum is great. Jaylen Brown is good. The reason that I don't even put Jason Tatum in that top 3 is, first of all, he hasn't been here yet. And secondly, in Game 7 against Miami, I didn't think Jason Tatum played that great. I think he was being a little bit too passive. I think he was giving the ball up a little bit too easily when the Heat were trapping him. Yes, they were sending traps at him, but I was watching Jason Tatum play, and I'm saying he was conceding the pass and giving the ball up to one of his teammates a little bit too soon instead of trying to attack whatever trap they were sending at him. The guys that were guarding him couldn't really guard him directly, and the people they were sending the trap, they might not have been able to stop him. And he had on that Kobe Bryant armband during the game. I said this on Twitter, like, Jason Tatum got on a Kobe Bryant armband. Kobe Bryant wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, Kobe would give up the pass sometimes, but at some point, Kobe might surprise the trap, because if they're used to you, or as soon as they bring the trap, they know you're going to pass it. They get used to that. They get conditioned to it. So a time or two, you might be able to surprise them. And instead of passing it, boom, you just go attack it, split it, and go make something happen. That's what Kobe Bryant would have done. And I'm watching Jason Tatum. All right, you want to put on the Kobe armband? You want to remind us of Kobe? Okay, go do something that Kobe would do. Jason Tatum was giving up the ball a little bit too easily down the stretch in Game 7, especially because his teammates were not actually making the right. They weren't scoring. They weren't doing anything because they didn't have it. That's why I said they didn't have that secondary score. At some point, a Kobe Bryant type, a Dwayne Wade type, Michael Jordan type, Allen Iverson type, whatever, LeBron James type. At some point, one of those players is going to say, all right, forget it. I'm not going to just keep passing it because y'all ain't doing anything. Let me go do something with this. Jason Tatum didn't do that. So when I say the top 3 players I trust, especially given this situation, Steph, Klay, Dre. So this is going to be a point for the Golden State Warriors again on this one. Now, point number 11. Those of you who have been following my NBA Finals picks, I've been doing this every year since, I think I did it in 2015, but I know I did it in 2016. You can go check the stats, check the receipts. 2016, I picked the Cavs to win that series. They did win that series. And every year, I try to pick the underdog. I usually like to pick the underdog because what fun is it picking the team that everybody already thinks is going to win? The favorite in this series is the Golden State Warriors. Not by a lot, just by a little bit. They are the favorite in the series. So I usually like to pick the underdog. Every year that the Cavs went to the finals and played against the Warriors, I picked the Cavs. I was only right one time out of that 4, but I picked them every single year. I usually like to pick the underdog in these situations. However, and actually, let me give a point to the Celtics here because they are the underdog. So I would give a point to the Celtics for that. But my pick this year, for the first time since I've been doing these NBA Finals predictions, I'm going to go with the team that is the favorite. I already told you the reasons why, because I believe all of these things that I laid out. Celtics are shaky as a closing team. They have home court advantage. If the Celtics don't have Rob Williams, that is shortening their rotation. That's a big deal because that hurts them defensively. They don't have a solid secondary scorer that I trust. The Warriors have more finals experience. The Celtics might be a year early. The Warriors have a deeper rotation. I trust the players on the Warriors more than I trust the players on the Celtics. I think Klay Thompson has something to prove. He wants to get his championship back, especially people saying Jordan Poole might be better than him. Y'all been hearing that. My pick for the 2022 NBA Finals champion, I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. I'm going to go with the Warriors to win this series in I'm going to go with the Warriors to win this in 6. I'm going to go with the Warriors in 6. And Game 6 would be in... That's not a 6. That is a G. All right, there's a 6. Game 6 would be in Boston. So I would say the Warriors can go on the road. They can win this series in Boston, closing it out. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7. They end up winning the game at home, game 7 at home, which would be fine, would be great for TV ratings and all of that. That is my pick for the 2022 NBA Finals champion, Golden State Warriors in 6. This is my first time picking the underdog. I mean, the favorite, rather. Golden State Warriors do not disappoint me, do not show up for this series. And that's what I got. Y'all tell me what you think of my points. Tell me if there's any really important points that I missed out on here. Tell me what you think about my Stephen A. Smith ESPN impersonation here with the traditional board, not the electronic board. I got to get the electronic one from ESPN. But that is that. Y'all let me know what you think. What is your pick? And make sure you get your pick in before the game starts. Don't wait till after game 1 and somebody wins and then you're going to say, well, I'm picking this team after game 1. I always tell y'all that. Don't wait. Don't leave comments after game 1 talking about who you're picking. Make sure you get your pick in before the series actually starts. That's that. And oh, yeah, get my daily motivation text at this number right here, 305-384-6894. And it's working with me directly in my coaching program. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.